Hello. I have been away forever. So I wanted to come back with a bang. And this time we're going to be talking about the process we use to help people move from fearful and tied up in knots and overthinking to free so they can go out and do what they do to the best of their abilities and actually enhance their abilities. And when I say we, one of the reasons I have been so quiet recently is that Emily Walker, the wonderful Emily Walker, has joined me in my business. So this is also my introduction to you and to you to Emily and to Emily to you. So welcome to the Courageous Performer podcast, a podcast designed to help inspire and equip you to go out and light up the world. Welcome, Emily.
Thank you, Hattie. It's lovely to be on here, and it's been a fantastic kind of journey joining you in this business, and we're really pleased to be here. It's very exciting, and I think the work that I think there's a point at which we realised that actually we're doing very similar work. We have very similar values, and why not work together? And it's been such a joy to do that so far. So yeah, here's to the future.
And we've already started working together because you came and joined me and helped me run the Fearless Performer program recently and my 5-day challenge. And I think that cemented for me two things. First, that we really fitted well together, and that what I hoped, which was that you could make the work we do really even more powerful for the people who come to find your true voice. But also that our energies fit really well together and complement each other. And you actually bring out the best in me and sometimes calm me down.
And yeah, I would say the same. I think you bring out more in me as well, and bring out the best in me. And I think we have a good synergy working together, which then in turn really supports the people who work with us. So that bringing out the kind of what's really important in the space in order to be able to help people to recognize what's going on for them and be able to then take steps further to really shine and be right in the world. And it's such exciting work.
And I think the interesting thing is that as we've worked together, we've realized that the work applies to more and more people. And because we both work with coaches, we've now started to incorporate coaches into our world because they're performers too. And that's what we want to, I wanted to, and you wanted to talk about today, was this idea of what is it we do and how it works. Because I think it can feel like a black art to people looking from the outside in. Because what I love about some of the conversations I have with people is that business people and coaches assume that performers are naturally confident.
Absolutely.
Put themselves out there and go, yes, it's fine. And performers who are not naturally confident look at business people and coaches and, well, they've got an easy life because they don't have to put themselves out there on stage. They don't have to go for auditions. And neither of them are right.
Absolutely. Because I think it's such a human thing. It's such a human thing to have those fears and have those doubts and have those judgments of ourselves and the situation. And it shows up in pretty much every single area of human life, whether you're a business person, a performer, an actor, a coach, a facilitator, all of these areas. We have those doubts. It's completely normal, and we've experienced those too. We've totally experienced those as well.
And I love that you put, I was going to say, I love that you put it in the past tense. It's like, no, this is a process that keeps going.
Yeah.
So what would you say as, being the so-called outsider coming in, what would you say is are the key parts of our process?
Oh, well, I would say, I did the course back at the end of last year, and I was really blown away by it. It speaks to so many of the things that I'm passionate about as well, which was very exciting. And we got very nerdy about it and just started talking all about all the details of it. But the whole, I think one of the key aspects for me is recognizing that there's so many stories that we tell ourselves. There's this constant communication that's going on within ourselves that's very powerful, very could almost say addictive. It's a constant spiel of judgments and thoughts and concerns and worries and all the rest of it that go on, and it's a very human thing to do. But being in a space of being able to notice that and then create a shift, and then also making it about the audience and not about ourselves, shifting that perspective so that we are um, creating a shift in ourselves, in our perspective of what's important in the space. And ultimately, really leaning into the perspective of the audience. That was I think a really valuable part of this whole process is shifting that perspective, because it then means it's not about you and you don't have to think about yourself the whole time, which is inevitably where we end up.
Well, I was just going to laugh because obviously we used to, when we were chatting just before we came on,
Mm,
you were talking about what will get us into the headspace, and we were talking about the fact that actually, what is it we want to give people today?
mm,
Because it's so tempting to go, well, what do we want from this? And actually, it's what do we want to give people today? And what you were saying about the tuning into those voices in our heads, if one person has told me, 100 of my clients have told me, and I don't know if you find it the same in your work, when they say, I didn't realize how horrible I was being
mm.
to myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that realization, because so much of this happens day to day in a very subtle way, just going on underneath the surface. So we don't necessarily notice it most of the time, but it is subtle and it is very much, very, very much there, and impacting our everyday experience of life, emotionally, physically, in all sorts of different ways. And it feeds a story about who we are and how we are. So, the key for me, and again, this is very much shows up in my work as a coach and a trainer and so on, is helping people to become more aware of that. Because it's only when we become more aware of that then we have the capacity and the choice to make about whether we continue with that. So for me, awareness is the first step, the biggest key of noticing what's going on. And we do this, I think that's what we also provide for each other. If I'm really honest, like just a kind of, oh, so just checking in, Hattie, or you checking in with me, like what is going on, what is the story you're telling yourself at this point? And then just by that inquiry and that exploration, then we can be more aware, and then we have choice.
And I think that's perfectly so. I mean, because if we look at the process, the first part of the process is tuning into the voices, hearing them, hearing exactly what they're saying to you. The second part is understanding the dynamic, the way we respond to those voices. So we talk about a little bit about transactional analysis, about how we respond in child. But the next part, and this is the part that I find really interesting, is when you've built that awareness and you understand the dynamic, it's then realizing that these voices are trying to protect you.
Mm,
They are there to help you. They are, in a sense, your armor. And this is what I love, because the whole point of this process was it came out of the life coaching principles. And the
mm,
life coaching principles are that you are not broken, you are caught in a set of patterns. And therefore, when you make yourself aware of those patterns, as you say, you open up the choice to choose different patterns. And this is it. You get to then decide whether you want to keep this armor that part of you has felt has kept you safe. But
mm,
we know from having worked with, business people and performers and coaches, that armor is actually keeping them small and it's
mm.
keeping them caged.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that was really key to me when I started to learn about all this stuff was um, the idea that we're not being hard on ourselves. This is a very, uh, in a sense, we're not being hard on ourselves. I'm just going to explain that, because it's a very automatic thing. Our brain is designed as a safety mechanism. It is designed to keep us safe. It's not designed for, uh, you know, putting ourselves out there and feeling sad. It is designed to keep us safe. It's just a safety device. So of course it's going to try and keep you safe and keep you in a space of safety, which generally means not pushing yourself and not avoiding those times when you want to go on stage, for example. So our brain is designed to do that. So what we are doing is noticing those safety devices kicking in and then creating a shift. we don't have to be held back by the automations, if you like, the default system that is at play. So it's a perfectly human response. It's a perfectly human way of being, but we don't have to be limited by
So
it,
we
and
don't
that's
we
the
don't
joy.
then we don't then need to beat ourselves up for
No,
the fact that we beat ourselves up. But I think
exactly.
what is also interesting, although you're absolutely right, the brain is designed to keep us safe. They've also done tests, experiments where the brain is also designed for challenge, and
Mm,
it loves challenge. So they had and I can't remember the experiment, but they had an experiment where they asked people to put hoops over a post, and they gave them all the hoops, and some people just walked up to the hoop and put them on
mm,
the post because there were no rules and they absolutely could do that. The vast majority made a game out of it. Why do we make a game out of it? Because we like challenge. So there are these two parts of our brains, the one that wants to keep us safe and the one that's craving challenge. And they are almost at odds. And when you don't notice the fight, because
mm,
I find it really interesting. People come to me uh, having battled with nerves for decades. And what I find fascinating is they haven't given up. They
mm,
still want to put themselves out there. They are still craving doing this thing. Whereas all sense would say, look, if it's been this hard and you find it so difficult, why the heck don't you just give up? But they don't. And I'm
mm.
glad they don't, because we know you can change those patterns. We've
Absolutely.
both done that in our lives. But it's this wonderful thing of how do you release the part of your brain that loves challenge, that rises to those situations and thrives on those situations, and how do you take off the armor of the very sensible and very useful part of our brain that keeps us safe, that we don't want to switch off, because if we switch it off we wouldn't be safe.
Absolutely. And as you're speaking there, what I'm reminded of is the work when we bring this into the course as well, the work with Carol Dweck and the power of yet, and the fact that when we are in a space where we don't want challenge, we're kind of in that safety space now, that safety mindset, we're very much in a fixed mindset. Oh, we don't want challenge. I mean, that's me and kind of learning a modern language. Quite a fixed mindset, maybe. Um, but um, but when we're in this growth mindset that Carol Dweck talks about, we're in a space where we accept and look forward to challenge. We're in that space of, maybe I can't now, but I can't yet. And there's a possibility to that. And then there's an engagement with that. And maybe the people who are who are going over and putting the hoop over the post are maybe in a fixed mindset of, well, I just need to get it over the post. And the
Yeah, I
ones
don't want to
who
risk
throw it,
failure of
they don't
throwing
want
it
to
and
risk failure.
missing it.
Exactly, absolutely. Whereas those who throw it are in a space of, oh, growth mindset, possibility, challenge. Um, let's see what happens. Yeah.
And selfishly, that's why I love the course that we've got, in the
Mm,
fact that what I love about it is that we dig into some of the practical stuff. How are you talking to yourself? We dig into some of the psychological stuff. What's the dynamic going on? We dig into some more stuff, because I mean, I love Brené Brown and all of looking at
mm.
vulnerability and
Yeah,
courage and
me
that sort of
too.
stuff. But we also dig into the
Brilliant.
neurobiology of it, because I think with all these different pillars, we're the whole point of it is we're aiming to give people lots of different techniques to achieve the same thing,
Mm,
which is to achieve that idea of possibility,
mm.
that idea that making a mistake isn't an existential crisis, it's a step on the road. I remember talking to a performer once and she said, yeah, but you only get one shot at a performance. I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And then I went, and this was a performer with a world-renowned chorus.
Mm.
And I said, and how many one shots have you had over the 20 years you've been with this chorus, or however many years it was? She was like, oh, yes, I've had a lot. And we can make these things so make or break
Yeah.
and life or death. And actually, how do we show forgiveness and compassion? And I know this is one of your big things,
Mm.
that idea of self-compassion, because actually when we focus outwards, which is another thing you brought up earlier, it's much easier to show us ourselves self-compassion, don't you think?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And self-compassion has, three parts. We look at Kirsten Neff's version of self-compassion. Compassion has three parts. One is kindness, being kind to ourselves. How hard are we on ourselves, right? Being kind to ourselves is a whole thing in itself, how to be kind to ourselves. So kindness. The other is this aspect of mindfulness, which is what we've been talking about, this awareness, just noticing, being aware of how we are with ourselves, what's going on for ourselves. And then this other one is common humanity, which is something that when I first looked into this idea of self-compassion, that aspect of common humanity hit me really powerfully, actually. And that's to say that we are all human, and what you're experiencing now is something that there are many other human beings in the world who are also experiencing exactly that right now. You are not alone in this. And so many of those times when we feel fearful, when we are being hard on ourselves, when we're being judgmental, we can feel alone. We can feel like we are the only ones, and everyone else is doing fantastically, and everyone else is so lovely and kind to themselves, and everyone else is just brilliant, and we are alone in that. We are so not alone. And this aspect of common humanity is really, really important to recognize. We are not alone in this. This is a very human experience. And so that's, yes, really, really important. And one thing about this course, I think that's really lovely. I mean, it is so rich. And I think coming back to what you were just saying about, there are so many tools, there are so many facets on this course, so that if one or two land with you, then you have something really rich and powerful to move forward with. And I think that's also part of the reason why you get so many people coming back and doing the course again. Maybe not even twice. Some people come back 3 or 4 times because there's still so much to learn and still so much depth to go to with each of those pieces as well. And if one thing hits you and one thing lands with you the first time round, it might be something else that lands with you the next time, and so on.
And I think the interesting thing is I wrote this course.
Mm,
I've run this course for years now. I mean, it must be almost a decade now.
mm,
I have been running this course in various forms, and it's obviously changed over the years. Every time I run it, I get something else from it for myself. But what you were saying about self-compassion, I thought was really interesting, because you said common humanity. And that is where, when you focus on the audience and you look out and you
mm,
ask what's going on for them, suddenly you remember they're human.
mm,
And I mean, we're talking about this course, but actually, this is the whole process. This is our whole ethos. This is our raison d'etre, as they like to say. This, how can we help people unlock themselves from their own armor, their own cages, the cages designed to keep them safe, but are keeping them small. And I think what we wanted to say, just tapping in, what we wanted to say today is, this is possible. It doesn't matter
mm,
how long this cage has imprisoned you. When you start to tune in to what is going on in your head, when you start to understand it, offer yourself some compassion, understand the neurobiology of, simply changing your thoughts and then repeatedly
mm.
using those thoughts is a way of changing the structure of your brain, which I always think is amazing.
Incredible.
But
Yeah.
that whole idea of possibility, that whole idea of it's never too late, this isn't your personality,
Mm,
this is your pattern. And to just give people that idea of it can change, and you have something within you, all of you, everyone has something of a genius in them, of genius in them. And when you let that out, it will light up people, it will light up the world. And that's the whole ethos of what we have here. It's like, how can we release people from their own chains so that they can be the genius that they
mm.
already are? I know that sounds really kind of like highfalutin and everything, but that it matters to us, I think.
Absolutely. Everyone has within them their own perspective on life, their own talent, their own skills, um, uh, their own joie de vivre, their own genius. And wouldn't it be amazing if we saw more of that in the world? Because it's so often the case that we just see some people shining in some ways. But if more people could shine more brightly and enjoy that process and feel the joy of that process and bring joy to others through that, the world is just going to be a much more beautiful place to be,
More
and
beautiful and more compassionate. And
more compassionate.
I love that you mentioned joy, because that is at the core of it. I mean, it's the last piece of the puzzle of our
Mm,
process is tapping back into that joy. But although it's the last piece, it is also the piece that goes through everything:
absolutely.
self-compassion and tapping into joy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also loved what you spoke about a little bit earlier, which was about it's never too late, because actually this whole aspect of neuroplasticity, which has been really unpacked in the last sort of 30 years or so, showing that actually doesn't matter what age you are, doesn't matter your background or race or gender or whatever it might be, we all have the capacity at any point in our lives to change the neural pathways in our minds to one that actually serves us better, that helps us to shine our light into the world.
And I think it was Dan Siegel in his book Mindsight. I think it was him. Talks about he worked with a 92-year-old man
Mm,
who was struggling with his relationship with his wife, and he changed his patterns. He
yeah.
changed his neural pathways at 92. If you can do it at 92, you can literally do it at any age. And so it's never too late. You're never stuck, and there is always possibility of change. Now, as we come to the end of this episode, what what do you think is the one thing you would like people to take from what we've been talking about today? And that's a really coachy question.
That's a really coachy question, Hattie. But also, I mean, as coaching questions are, it is a really good question. So, I think the one thing that I would love people to take away is this idea of hope, that there is possibility and potential in every single one of you. And it just takes a little moment of realization, a little bit of noticing, um, a little shift to start to create the change that you want to see in yourself.
I love that. It's kind of like cracking an egg. It's like
Mm,
once you get that bit through the end and you just start to see what's
mm,
inside,
yeah.
because the analogy I use of, like, I won't go into it in depth, but the egg and the yolk of pure gold that everybody has in it, it takes cracking the shell. And once you crack your own shell, which is your armor, and you start to see your own genius with self-compassion, I think you offer everyone else more compassion and joy, and everything goes from there.
Mm.
Well, I'm so excited about the year we have ahead, the work we have planned, and everything we want to do together. But people will hear more about that. But I'm really excited to have shared our process with everybody today and introduced you as now part of Find Your True Voice. Welcome, Emily, and thank you for today.
Thank you so much for having me, Hattie. And it's great to be here. And I'm really looking forward to our work ahead. It's really, really exciting.
And just to say that we are creating a space called the Fearless Space, which is a free place, a free community that has resources in it. We will be running events in this space, and we'll put the link as to how to sign up for this space in the blurb that goes with the podcast, so that you can sign up. As I say, it's completely free, and it's filled with performers, business people, coaches, anybody who wants to put themselves out there, let go of their armor, and actually show the world what they've got. We wanted to create a space in which we could talk with each other and feel like you weren't alone, to mention what Emily
Mm.
said earlier. So we'll give you all that information. But thank you so much for listening, and we look forward to next time.